Welcome to another garden vlog, and this is actually the second video I've tried to make today. First one didn't really go well. We were kind of talking about obsessive recycling, obsessive gardening. How does a partner look at that when you spend a lot of time 2 or 3 times a year doing major garden work and spending hours and hours, and days and weeks doing some tasks, whether it's building a banana circle or working your permaculture garden or whatever. But I guess let's not focus on something, so intense. So this is some of Natalie's, what are they called? Orchids, different varieties. And they were kind of drying out inside. I bottom watered them yesterday morning. They didn't seem to be getting the water, so I top watered them as well and just let them kind of soak in there, and they look like they're nice and soaked now. Let's zoom in there. Those roots and all look moist, so let's take them out of this container here. And I've noticed that orchids do better outside. They may not like the cold weather, which means you have to bring them in or put them in a greenhouse or something. But they really do better outside. Even if they get some insect damage from the leaves, they're more willing, I guess, to bloom and everything. Maybe unless you have the perfect humidity, the perfect, light through the windows and stuff. You're always dehumidifying the environment when you have your heaters, your fans, your air conditioner on. And but check this out. This is a sun sprite, and you can see it was majorly damaged and from that drought and all we had earlier in the summer. But it's got some new growth and stuff. Look at there. And hopefully it'll make a full recovery. Very pretty. Super fragrant. And look at the inside there. It's almost like an orange color where that pollen is. Noticed yesterday morning a lot of the plants that I had here kind of on these pavers and stuff, they were starting to droop, and I checked the soil and they were so dried out. Even though we're not in a super hot time, we're in the fall. Figured they'd be okay, so I had to kind of soak a few of the fig trees, bottom water them, and top water them a little bit. I was just so surprised to see that the soil on a lot of these are just drying out. We got a Tiffany rose here. It's gotten super leggy, and it's fixing to bloom as well. We put it in pretty major shade, so that we could keep it moist and not have it dry out. But yeah, I don't know, is this like a vining shrub or what? I'll have to look this up. I was just looking at some of the grafts I put on some of these loquats, and what's kind of bothering me about this one, see if I can somehow get it almost looks like it's pushed up the scion wood here. I don't know if a bird could have got it or a squirrel. So I'm kind of worried that could indicate, maybe the drying out of some of the wood where it kind of loosens up when that happens. I could try to redo it, but it may just not be going to take it. Anyway, the scion wood itself is green. I see some green on it, so we just have to hope nothing bumps into it. Dogs, birds, squirrels, whatever. When I do pawpaws, if they fail, a lot of times they will fail immediately, and you'll see like the original rootstock, there will be like a bud or something pushing leaves out right below where you do the graft. Not sure if it's the same with loquats, and that's usually a good indicator. But even mulberries and everything, they sort of kind of loosen up or push out because they seem to like dry out, or they don't create a union, where they go together at the cambium layer. So yeah, it just that has me worried. But let's hope for the best. This is a different one, and again, it may be hard to see, but the scion wood is pretty much where I put it onto the rootstock, so it hasn't contracted. You know, that contraction usually, in my very limited experience, is a bad sign. And I think, you know, bird squirrels, even like windstorms, you know, can sometimes loosen that up, especially if you put bags and foil, aluminum foil and stuff on top to maybe block the sun. Every bit of weight you put on there, even having leaves that you don't cut off, if you don't wrap the whole scion wood, can cause the scion wood to come loose, I think. But I think more often than not, the contraction is when something is changing size, most likely due to losing moisture or drying out. So we emptied out this stink water log bucket, the water and stuff all around this magic soil area and the logs there, that what was left over. But check this out, there's like mud, soil, whatever here that's going to be super nutrient rich. Maybe we should put that in our banana circle. Yeah, it just looks like you know, somebody plopped some slop or something on there. But that's not 100% composted, you know. You got composted stuff, you got the moisture. Some of that moisture is going to leave since it's exposed to air. It's going to attract all kinds of little insects and bacteria and everything to help, hopefully, get this whole pit composting faster. When you do these stink water buckets, fetid swamp water, Korean anaerobic organic composting, liquid fertilizer, you're going to have some stuff, maybe some vines and carbon at the top or middle as like a solid thing you can bury in the ground or whatever if you don't want the dogs to come rub on it, or you can just throw it on top of a bed or maybe around your plants. And then you got the liquid to use, you know, where you can water directly into the roots. And then third, you got that muck that's like compost. It's going to stink for a while, it's going to dry out hopefully, and it should be super nutrient dense. And when you do this with open buckets or collect rainwater, especially during lightning storms, you know, that lightning electrifies the air, electrifies the raindrops coming down, and it adds nitrogen gases from the sky and from the air around us, and it allows that nitrogen to turn into a liquid form. So you got nitrogen already, potentially, if the weather conditions are right, plus all this other nutrients going into the bucket. So let's talk about wetland zone 1, you know. How did I see, you know, this taking shape from season 1 to season 2 to season 3 in the not so far future? So wetland zone 1 is sort of an L-shaped plot of land. It's like a long straight line followed by a short kind of L or something. And probably 70-80% of it were 2 goat areas. This is where we're at here. The long area was the goat run. There was another, like a doe pen there, and we had a buck pen just a short few feet away from wetland zone 1. And this is where the magic soil was created over about a period of 7 or 10 years just by the goats, because they sort of ate hay and grains and laid down and did, you know, whatever on about a 50 or 60 foot stretch there. And just all that amount of hay and pooping and peeing and, you know, food that got, you know, maybe wasted there, the grains and stuff over the years created a big layer or multiple layers of just hay that sponged up all that poop and pee. And if you dig in the right area, you might even still see remnants of the hay still composting down. That compost, that hay, turned into like a coffee ground, brownish. There's nowhere else in the property that has that color and richness. You know, I mean, you have some black topsoil, you know, in certain areas, and you have some swamp muck, you know, in various states of moistness or dryness. But the goats created this, and we've been trying to sort of expand that with our subterranean compost experiments and stuff as well. This swamp, magic soil area is what grew these pumpkins last year, or squash or zucchini or hybrids, whatever type of squash it was. And it grew like 1,000+ feet of vine. Not a single vine, but running all over the place, multiple vines from a single plant. And you know, we had, our smallest one was maybe 18 pounds. Our largest one was probably 70 to 80 pounds. And we gave like 90% plus of all of those pumpkins to the garden community locally, and a couple to, you know, some family members. We planted tea and all kinds of stuff here, lemon verbena. The tea shrubs did not survive the pumpkins overrunning them. I have seen no sign of them coming back. We had sweet potatoes, jewels of opar, which are probably still here, taro, Edo, malanga, something, one or two of those varieties, arrowroot, a few gingers, turmeric did not come out. I don't think our culinary ginger came out, but we're going to just replant some in this area, and hopefully they'll survive from an existing plant versus a tuber. A little papaya here that's kind of long and spindly, or whatever you call it, and just not doing much. It's probably in too much shade. But hey, we just had a bunch, and we just planted them here, there, and everywhere. Some of them survived, some of them didn't. We planted our cherry of Rio Grande here last year, our Cattleya lemon, strawberry guavas here, and just on the other side of the wetland zone 1 fence over there. Taro, edible taro. We got like a black seedling Suriname cherry. We got figs like that one there. This sort of magic soil area, we have like tons and tons of elderberries that we've just let grow to see how they did, you know, in comparison to our 2015 best elderberries. These are basically pretty much all crosses or hybrids of improved cultivars mixed with potentially wild seedlings, and, you know, possibly the cross of 2015 best with something else. May have crossed back to it, may have crossed to you know, Adams, Johns, something, Florida Wild. And, you know, each patch does have different things, you know, different sizes, different colors, different size, like of the flower heads, different smells, you know, or intensities of their smell. But so far, I don't think anything has surpassed the best harvest from our 2015 best. Just like letting these elderberries grow here, we've sort of decided to let a lot of the mulberry seedlings grow here. Some of them are obviously, you know, seedlings from our white mulberry. Some of them are obviously seedlings from the red mulberry, but do those trees actually produce male flowers, or are they producing based on the cross of our Himalayan male mulberries? And I've got two of them, one within probably 100 feet of one of our white mulberries, and one within probably 60 feet of the other white mulberry. So there's a decent chance that many, if not all of them, are crossed with our single Himalayan, which would have been an improved cultivar, most likely, crossed, possibly open pollinated with some other male. So we know the female parentage of that male, we know the female parentage of these trees, and the only question is whether or not they had some sort of semi self-fertilization, or if most of them, if not all, are fertilized by our male. We planted our experimental peach here. We planted our Fakahatchee grass. I'm probably not even pronouncing that right. We got several passion fruits that we've planted here. One or two may have died. We got probably at least 2 different cultivars or types surviving. We got our Brazilian black dwarf banana there. We got our potentially Orinoco banana there on our banana mound. We've got a few citrus seedlings. One over there, one over here. Then we have the trifoliate orange seedling that we sort of rescued in that L-shaped area. We put in lemongrass. I don't know if that's the fakahachi there or the lemon. And there's some right there. So I put 2 clumps there. They're kind of being taken over by weeds right now. But we got both of them here. The Chiang Mai 60 mulberry, which hasn't done well, but we're going to probably take all the weeds out this season or the beginning of next and just mulch it. There is an improved 6th Street. Well, I guess random seedlings somewhere in those weeds as well that has done a little bit better. If I wanted to get in the weeds, I could find it, but we've shown it to you guys several times on our video. Got a few of the hog plums. I think 2 here. I think we have or had a wild or seedling blueberry somewhere in here. Not exactly sure if it still exists because of the weeds. We also planted those American persimmons. None of the American grafted persimmons took. One of them came back from the root stock. So we'll just let that root stock come back and just form a tree if it wants. Planted a Suriname cherry somewhere in this area, and we haven't been able to find it all season, so it may have died or it might just be hidden. But we do have at least one on that L section of the wetland zone 1 that's thriving. We have the grafted Pakistan mulberry here, and it just looks bad. Some kind of mildew or something all over it. Even the grafting line. And there's that. Right there is that Suriname cherry. Then we have the grafted pecan there, and the trifoliate oranges is back there. I think we have a wild pineapple bromeliad, which is nasty and gnarly, so it's kind of back along the fence line there where we really don't plan to do anything, just to have it. And I think we have put some spineless prickly pears, you know, cactuses over there somewhere, but I'm not going to go try to find it right now. Kind of bordering on that wetlands zone 1 end. There's a wonderful pomegranate, and we're here with a few. We go to our citrus area, our original one. So we were initially looking for sugar cane, and we've spent maybe a year looking. I tried to find some local that was a decent price, and you know, I have no idea how orchards or whatever get into sugarcane farming. One person or whatever sells one plant for $8. You know, one little tiny, you know, plant. And or you know, when you find the sugar cane in grocery stores or whatever, they nick the buds off so that they won't root. You can't root them if they take the buds off. So it seems like it's purposeful for people to make it so that you cannot propagate these for a decent price, not for mass planting or anything. How do people that want to start a sugarcane orchard actually make it? Do you have to buy just 1 or 10 plants at $100-$200 or more, and then keep repropagating for 2 or 3 or 5 years until you have enough canes to actually produce something? It doesn't really make sense to me. My ideas for wetland zone 1 were probably more grander than, you know, what's going to be reality. But, you know, and the big part of that is the mulberries. You know, I'm becoming more accepting of experimenting with many of those mulberry trees to just see what becomes of them, see what kind of fruit and size and flavor, productivity and stuff, or fruit production is going to be, as long as they're not in a walkway or some way that's going to prevent us from doing whatever we have planned for the future. Obviously, we wanted to do more American persimmons. I'm kind of saying it doesn't really matter at this point. I'll let that one rootstock just come up. If it's going to come up, turn into a tree. Get a couple more just to make sure we have male and females. And whether or not another one goes in that area or more go into another area away from wetlands on one, hopefully we'll get pollination in the future. It could be a long way away before they actually start flowering. A lot of people recommended blueberries, and that's still on my radar because I have such bad luck everywhere planting blueberries. I bought a bunch of them this year. Almost all of them died. I gave away the last 2 or 3 that were sort of alive, and that's that. Maybe in the future we'll have something set up so those blueberries can just maybe for the first time ever in our property take off. People said mayhaws, but rust is a big issue with mayhaws. I however do have one grafted one left that has not been put in the ground, so maybe we could put it in that impossible area that's just so root dense that you can't dig in with all those maples and stuff. And we've never been able to grow anything successful there, and things do come up there. Weeds, pecans, when they want to come up, they come up, and you don't want them there. But if you try to dig in there, plant a citrus in the ground, I put like 2 of them. I put a grafted pecan there, probably a variety of other things, and they don't like it. So building raised beds, maybe putting asparagus there, that's still an option. I don't know what the future is going to look like, though. Just like the avocado that we put in the wettest part of the yard in that raised bed, I would love for that single peach tree that I put in there to thrive in the age alternative wood chip mycorrhizal bed. That would be very nice if this method would allow people to grow peaches and avocados and other things that there's no way their land would be able to let those plants thrive on otherwise. So far, I'm not convinced about the peach because it looks like it's not thriving. It's alive, and maybe we just needed to age the bed more, to have it get a year or something, and we kind of planted it out pretty fast. I think when I posed the question of, is this a paradise or is this a disaster, a lot of people probably had ideas that, wetlands, wet-loving plants, here's your list of potentials, and they probably, and maybe even myself, I may have probably even thought at that time, how can we grow, not wet-loving plants, dry land-loving plants that like water, like peaches, like avocados, but don't like wet feet. They don't like bacterial root rot. And I don't know when the transition of my personal thoughts went on that matter, because I think the 2 things I was thinking about planting when I started the season 1 of the raised age wood chip bed was avocados and loquats. And you probably say well, loquats kind of like moist or wettish lands, but they don't like it so wet back here. This is like wetland zone 2. And even on the borders of this area, they have died every time I've planted them in the ground. So there is maybe tipping point of dry versus wet, where they're going to thrive over here and die over here. Even pawpaws may have been mentioned by others as something to put there. And, I think it's inevitable that potentially will happen if we have successes elsewhere. So we have places to plant our seeds or seedlings and expand and experiment more. But until we have some level of a decent level of success, we may not put pawpaws over there. We got them in wetland zone 2. So will we get sugarcane over there or when? I think for now I'm not actively looking for it. I think if the opportunity arises and I can get some good sugarcane with good buds on it and get enough to mass plant, when I say mass, I don't mean like hundreds or thousands, but maybe a couple dozen or 50 or whatever, then I'll say let's move forward. But for now, it's not even planned. And I would say we'll keep an eye on how the peach does. Does it improve with that raised mycorrhizal bed in the next year or two? Does it produce good quality peaches based on the nutrients it's given from that bed versus going out and fertilizing or adding more soil or compost or something into the mix? And the future of the elderberries there, we could wipe a lot of those elderberries out over time and plant other stuff there, maybe Cattleya guavas. But basically, we're trying to push Mother Nature in this area a certain way. It may push back a little bit or a lot from us, and we may have to just adjust to some of the stuff it's providing. Like I said, those mulberry trees, we can just, as long as they're not in our way, let them grow out, let them fruit. And they say the first year or two, the fruit may not be the same as it's going to be later on. So we might have to let it fruit for 2 or 3 years, each one of them. And then if it's bad, graft or mark that as a bad tree, get rid of it. But it would be really nice to make some new cultivars out of some of them guys. And a lot of them that are in our way, we're just going to pot up and we're going to give to people so they can experiment. So our Wetland Zone 1 experiments, people will be doing them whether they know it or not. Personally, I can't think of more than like 5 or 10 other plants and stuff to put over there for now. I think we got so much. We got stuff in pots that may be going in there as well when we do rootings and cuttings and get everything, have backups like the Korean mulberry and stuff. But once that's done, we are probably going to be okay with just sitting and forgetting it, other than that impossible area where we're obviously going to have to build out some beds to do something with if we want to use it at all. I apologize for not putting plants in the ground or doing something major with today's garden vlog, but it's more of a sort of recap, and I'm just throwing my ideas out about the Wetlands Zone 1 project mostly. We are still obviously experimenting with this banana mound that we put in, was it last season or whatever, and it may need a couple seasons before we see what happens. If we're going to expand that mound or create banana circles and put more bananas in that area, we just don't know. Between that and figs, that's about the only other thing I'm thinking. So I guess you guys have an idea of what I'm thinking now, and take care.